Say amen for Amazon for coming through in the clutch with these chairs. I put them together this morning. Hopefully it holds up, y'all. Y'all praying for Pastor? Y'all praying this morning? I've never done anything quite like this. It has been a dream of mine to be able to do things of this nature. And I'm appreciative of your time today, Mr. Harris. Can we give Mr. James Shack Harris a hand? So this is going to be used. This is going to be used in not just content for our church, but the idea is to be able to create legendary conversations to become a podcast. So this is the very first conversation that we're having of this magnitude. And so I want to introduce Mr. James Shack Harris, who is from Monroe, Louisiana. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right. So the first thing, I'm going to go through some of your accomplishments here so people can understand who's sitting with us. So Grambling University, 1965 through 68, the MVP of the Orange Blossom Classic, the first black starting quarterback in NFL history, an NFL Pro Bowler in 1974, front office executive for the Baltimore Ravens, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Detroit Lions, a father, a leader, and a living legend. Give it up for James Shack Harris.
Thank you.
So my first question to you is, tell us about growing up in Monroe, Louisiana.
Okay, before I get to that, let me just say thank you, all of you, for coming out and being a part of this. And certainly all of you who may have remembered me when I played here or family members, I'm very appreciative of all the support that I had here in Los Angeles, and that was tremendous support that enabled me to have a good career here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So tell us about Monroe, Louisiana. What was it like growing up in Monroe?
Monroe, Louisiana is a small town, home of Delta Airlines. We wasn't poor, we just didn't have very much. But our parents were good at budgeting. We lived off the land. Some people grew vegetables, fruits, raised cows and pigs, and we exchanged. You know, my old man was a fisherman, so we gave the neighborhood fish. And you exchange, and that's the way we lived. We lived off of that hard work and credit. We needed our credit to survive. And as you graduated from high school, most of our graduates went to the Army or they had to get a job. There's very few people going to college here at that time. And I grew up in the segregated South. You know, I rode the back of the bus. I drunk from the colored water fountain. We got our books from the white schools. And it's a kind of a fenced-in community. Once you get outside that fence, then, you know, life can be risky.
Wow.
But we learned to live within, and we had everything within. Mechanics. We had somebody that can do anything that we needed for us to survive.
So living in that town of Monroe, from what I'm hearing, it was very self-contained. And
right.
Everything that you needed was within that community.
Right.
The community provided everything. Now tell me a little bit about this. Your dad was a fisherman. Did you like to go out and fish with him? Was that your thing that you liked to do as well?
I was leaning that way until he gave me the job of cleaning them. And then as I clean them for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah. Now I read.
He's also a pastor.
That was my next question. I read somewhere that your father was a pastor, a Baptist minister. So tell us about that and your foundation in the church that you had growing up.
Well, when you grow up with a pastor in those days, I spent 18 years going to church each and every Sunday. If you missed church, then you had to take that castor.
Tell us about the casserole. Tell us what that is. What's the casserole?
I can't tell you because it has no taste.
Ooh.
It's medicine. So if you're sick, you really got to be sick, and you take this castor oil
Okay.
and stay home. It's the only way you can miss church. And then after church, he has an obligation to go and to the hospital, visit people, and that afternoon they'd be having the big games in the park. Everybody would be playing. I'll always be late because I had to go around with him and service the community. But you know, it was a rewarding experience for me to go up that way. And in our house, it ended up being one message: do the right thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So was your mother involved in the church as well? Or was it just your father did the primary ministering? What was your mother's role when it
My
came
mother, it was a family. My mother kept all the books. She paid the bills. My sister played the piano. My brother was an usher. And he and I would clean the church on Saturday. So,
So you cleaned the fish and the church.
I fished in the church.
That's good. So I want to know, when did you discover your love or your talent for playing sports?
Well, let me tell you about this. I want to share with you today about 3 experiences that I had with
Okay.
the church.
Go ahead.
And one was one day when I was sitting out and the pastor was preaching, and he said, all men are created equal. And I was getting in high school and I was listening. You know, one thing I always did was listen at the message, you know, because I grew up in revivals, Bible school, even teaching on Youth Sunday. So it was a part of me. So I used to listen at the message. And I knew the Bible well because of so many revivals and Bible studies. And I heard him say that, and I started thinking. I said, if all men are created equal, then why do we have to ride on the back of the bus? If all men are created equal, then why we have to drink out the colored water fountain? If all men are created equal, why we got to go to the colored bathroom?
Yeah.
And that's kind of stuck with me. And when it was over, I went to my father and I asked him just that question. And he said something very profound to me, that he said, James, just remember, those are not the word of the Lord. Those are the word of man. And you can't control that. He said, that's why we ask you to do one thing. Just do the right thing.
Do the right thing. I like that.
And then another one was when I was in the 10th grade, and I was going to start for my 10th grade team, and I was on a real good team. And it's hard to start on a real good team, and I was starting at quarterback. And it was a big issue. There was another 10th grade quarterback who was supposed to be real good. Some people thought he may even be better than me. So when that happened, I usually pray. We play on Friday night. I usually have a football prayer on Thursday night when I started asking the Lord. I didn't ever ask him to win or lose. I figured that was up to us.
Yeah.
But I asked him to prepare both teams from harm and injury and kind of protect me from injury. And as I prayed, I started thinking, since this quarterback is supposed to be better than me, and they was at Grambling talking to Coach Robinson about which one was the best, I just needed to start praying on Monday. So I started praying on Monday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to get a jump on it.
You get a head start. I like that.
And as I was praying, you know, it hit me. I say, I was asking the Lord for my prayer, and it said, God is a fair man.
Yeah.
And the other guy's nickname was QB. I said, QB praying to the same God.
Ooh,
We both praying to the same God.
that's good.
And God is a fair man.
Yeah.
And as I began to think, I felt that, and this has followed me through the rest of my life,
Yes, sir.
then what I need to do is prepare for my blessings. You know, He's going to prepare. He's going to bless us both the same.
Y'all taking notes here? That's
But
good.
I got to outwork Him.
My God.
So that day, I started doing extra.
Come on.
And from that day on, I've been trying to outwork and be prepared for my blessings.
That's good. That's good.
Preparation and work.
My God.
This is good right here. This is good. This is good nuggets right here. So he realized that he was praying to the same God that the other quarterback was. So now he had to prepare more. This is good. Tell us, when did you discover your love for sports? And when did you know, I love this and I'm good at this, I'm special at this? When did you realize that?
Well, I was kind of forced into it. When I was early on, something happened and I couldn't go to kindergarten, which meant I had to stay with my grandmother. And my grandmother had simple rules: her way or no way. And, you know,
That's pretty simple.
yeah, it's simple. And I like the rules simple.
Yeah.
Before you can be anything, you have to understand the rules of the game.
Yes, sir.
And I saw her drop my brother. You know, she don't necessarily look for no belt or switch. She used the skillet or the fiver club. You know what the fiver club is?
No, sir. What's that? I like that.
So when I had to play,
Yeah.
and she wasn't in a good mood, I just go in the backyard and started playing sports. So I had a lot of experience with it. But one day when I was in there listening, and a lady came by my house and was talking to my mother, and she told my mother, and my mother said, everybody's going to the army. My brother's going to the army. And she said, I just wish that James could go to college. I didn't understand much about college at the time. So most during the summer, everybody had to go to the cotton field and help their parents. You had to buy your own school clothes. So you had to go to the cotton field. So I volunteered to help my parents out by going to the cotton field. And I got out there, and they give you a row. And it's about 115 degrees, no shade tree, and you had to pick that cotton and put it in a sack.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't very good, and my boys would help me out. So the guy fired me from the cotton field, you know what I mean? So I ended up going back home, and I tried it again. I got fired again. So when I went home this time, I realized one thing, Pastor.
What was that?
I am not a cotton picker.
You're not a cotton picker. I like that.
I am not a cotton picker. So I started asking my mother and them, what about this college? That's sort of like another option for me.
Yeah.
I started asking about this college, and they told me you had to get your books and all that. So I started, I was already a pretty good student. So I started doing that, and when I got about the 4th grade, they asked about writing reports. And they had the Ebony magazine.
Yeah.
And in the Ebony magazine, they would have pictures of all the famous people, successful people.
Yes, sir.
And most in the Ebony was sports and entertainment. Very few politicians. That dominated.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't sing or dance. So there wasn't nothing else for me to do but play sports.
Yeah. You couldn't pick cotton.
No.
You couldn't sing, couldn't dance. So were there other sports that you played, or was football the only one? When did you start playing football, and when did you know it was football that was going to be your sport?
Well, actually, I was better in other sports growing up. Baseball, because everybody was a Brooklyn Dodger fan because of Jackie Robinson.
Yes, sir.
And the black players. And I got into basketball. When I went to high school, basketball was my sport. And football, I ended up getting into, like when I was in high school. Mainly as football, they didn't have any blacks playing quarterback. I was a quarterback of the Sandlocks, but where I grew up, on the Sandlocks, the Browns edition, I owe a lot to those guys, because that's where I learned to compete, which has been a part of me competing in life. Because the rules of the game, remember now, I like it simple. The rules of the game was simple, You compete to win, or go home to your mother.
Oh, I like this. Compete to win. I'm getting so many nuggets sitting here listening to this. So tell us about, you played well and obviously played well in high school, and then it came time for you to go to college. Tell us why you made the decision to go to Grambling State University.
Most of my heroes were my teachers and my principals. And their hero was Eddie Robinson. The fact that I wanted to play quarterback, there were no blacks playing quarterback anywhere. Most of the guys who played quarterback had to switch. And Grambling was going to give me an opportunity to play quarterback. I visited other schools. I was fortunate because I played with a lot of good players, a lot of good teams. We won a lot. I've always been on a good team. So I ended up being a guy who got a lot of scholarships. And when it came time to sign, like my senior year, my father called me in and said to me, said, James, because they didn't want me to play football. My brother got hurt. My mother told him no football for me. And when she found out I could go to college, she allowed me to play football. But he said, James, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to use football and get a degree for your mother.
Wow.
Shortly after that, he passed away.
Wow.
And that left me, it was me and my mother, that left me with the feeling that I had to help her. Grambling was close by. So that fall, and Coach Eddie Robinson came by my house and he told my mother that if you allow me to coach your son, I'll treat him like my very own. He'll go to class and get a degree, and when he graduates, he'll make a difference in life. Wow. And I promise you that.
What made Coach Eddie Robinson so special to you? What made him special? For those of you all who may not know who Coach Eddie Robinson is or was, he was the all-time leading wins in college football history until, I believe, Joe Paterno broke that record about early 2000s. But what made Coach Robinson so special?
You could trust him.
Ooh.
Simple. You know, you're 18 years old, you're growing up in segregation, and you want to put everything on. It wasn't fair because I was black. You know, they arrested me because I was black there, and he didn't teach that. You know, when you went to see him, when you talk to people, even today, most of the time you're always talking about the problem. And when you talk to other people, they're talking about, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the problem. Yeah. He always had answers. As an 18-year-old, when I can walk out with answers, and I know the answer may be, like we had a guy that got arrested for speeding, and Coach had to go down and get him out. And he said, Coach, the reason they arrested me because I was black. And Coach told him the reason they arrested you because you were speeding. You know? And that's the way he was. But the biggest thing I can say that I learned from him was that he didn't golf, he didn't play tennis, he didn't do any of those things. He was a football coach, and his life was sports. And he cared about his players. On registration day, you hear coaches fashionably say now, it's a student athlete. But when it come time to register or something, they delegate that. He didn't. When you was in trouble, he was there. He would walk you to class. He would make sure that you were going to get every opportunity to graduate with what you promised his parents. But when I sum it up and I look back on it, the one thing that helped me in my life from him was that the will to win, you know, game is just a preparation for life. In life, the will to win. In order to have the will to win, you must have a will to prepare. All right?
In order to have the will to win, you must have the will to prepare. This is...
So to get that, if I'm gonna get that job,
yeah,
I got to be more prepared. And another thing that have followed me too, especially coming up in the black quarterback world. You know, I realized that you're not a failure when you don't succeed. You know, you are a failure when you fail to prepare for the opportunity when it comes.
His main message today, I hope you all are getting this, it's all about preparation.
That's good.
Preparation.
Yeah.
Preparation. Wherever you're trying to go, you got to prepare to get there.
Yeah.
You cannot make it to your next place if you do not prepare to get there. You have to prepare, you have to see yourself getting there. I like to say I'm a macro manager, which means I see things in the big picture, and then I have to create the details and work my way back. Not just being so detailed for the now, but having a big picture and having this preparation. So I want to talk a little bit about your options after college. You did all this, you won in Grambling. I'm sure it was a great college experience, big man on campus. You know, I know you was a big man on campus. You don't have to be shy about it. You the quarterback at Grambling University. Kind of a big deal. But your options after college, at the time, there weren't as many options for football players coming out of school as there were now. The media wasn't as big as it is now. Combine, camps, quarterback coach, all the specialization. And I'm wondering, in your mind, were you thinking, was this going to be it for me for football? What were your options after college that you thought about if this didn't work, if the NFL or the AFL wasn't going to work?
Unfortunately, I played at that time and the best conference with a lot of great players. And they were going into the NFL and making it in the NFL, except quarterback. And, you know, I was player of the year in black college football. We had played in New York. We had played everywhere. Had great players on my team. So they had said that I was going to go high in the draft. I was looking forward to that. But what more important, the one thing I wanted even more than being a black quarterback was to help my mother with her bills, you know.
Yeah.
And if I get drafted right, I was going to be able, for the first time, go and give my mother some money to pay J.C. Penney's off,
Yeah.
pay Sears off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've seen her many times going that little change purse and give me that last quarter.
Yeah.
And I felt, at least that's what I can do. So I was looking forward to that.
Yeah.
When the draft happened, they asked me to switch to another position. I wasn't willing to do that because, you know, I felt that I owed it to whoever may follow me or somebody. I wanted to play quarterback. And I told them no. They kept their word. I kept my word. I wasn't switching. And guess what? They kept their word. They didn't draft me early, you know. So I decided to get a game up.
Now I have some questions here, but I want to talk a little bit about this because I'm such a sports fan, and I've seen the struggles that black quarterbacks have had. In particular, I remember Cordell Stewart when he came out of Colorado around 1991 or 2. Cordell Stewart had a rocket arm. He could run, he could make every single throw. But when Pittsburgh drafted him, they made him change the wide receiver. Same thing with Antoine Randall L., who I saw up close and personal, being from Chicago. Antoine Randall L. destroyed us in football as a quarterback. Went to Indiana, destroyed the competition. Pittsburgh drafts him, and he switches. When you saw that happening to the young quarterbacks at the time, were they calling you for advice, or what would you say to them as somebody who had gone through that and you saw the NFL was kind of pushing them to switch those positions? Did you ever have conversations with those young quarterbacks at the time?
Some of them, but it had changed because you hit a period there where when you had Ronald Cunningham and you had, even before Warren Moon, you had McNabb.
Yeah.
It had gotten to a point where if you were good enough, you could play. So we had gotten out of my era into that era. And when they were switching guys, then it was still some reservation of how they was evaluated. But I always encourage guys to try to follow your dream as a quarterback if you believe. First of all, though, every quarterback has not had a talent to play quarterback in the National Football League. And you have to be a good self-evaluator. But if you had that ability, you should be able to play.
That's good. That's good. Now, you mentioned Jackie Robinson. And you being a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, you watched Jackie Robinson play. And you don't call yourself this, but I'm gonna say this. How do you feel being like the Jackie Robinson of the NFL? Because that's essentially what you are.
I never really thought about that until after I finished playing, because I was so focused on representing all the players who came after me that I would not be the reason or use why they didn't make it.
Wow.
Coach Robinson taught me that it's a difference between an excuse and reason why. You know, when my opportunity came and I decided not to play pro football, and I went to talk to him, and he told me that he knew I could play quarterback. But if you go and come back and don't make it, don't say it's because you're black. You know it's unfair before you leave. You got to be better. And that stuck with me. But it's a message in there. And that message is, it's a difference between an excuse and a reason why. The reason why is, I'm black, they're not playing black. But that's not an excuse for me being prepared to play.
Wow. So I like to use an acronym for the word blame. I have an acronym. Blame is believing lies and making excuses. I love to use that acronym for blame. This is my kind of man, right? I'm like a kid in a candy store because of these lessons that he's teaching on today. I saw an interview that spoke about some of your white teammates when you got to Buffalo, because Buffalo was your first team, correct? Where they weren't understanding your calls in the huddle. How did you feel with having to, now you're switching, you're playing with more white teammates or teammates that aren't from the same place where you are? How did you make that adjustment when those kind of subtleties were thrown at you that could have been deemed as racist, but you didn't make an excuse, but your preparation went to the next level? How did you change how you prepared, because now you're playing with different teammates?
That was tough. That was one of the toughest things I had to do, because I had never talked to white people. I mean, I had conversation with the doctor my mother worked with, but most of the time they were talking and I was just okay. Even when I went to visit other schools, I didn't have much to say to them, because we didn't grow up that way. I never went to school with white people, never played with them. And when we saw each other, they'd be fighting so that was hard. And when I first went to Buffalo, and I talked to Coach Robinson, when you call the cadence, they're asking you to lead. And you got to call the cadence to both sides. 88 on 2, 88 on 2. And I understood that in high school and college. But when I got to Buffalo and had to step in the huddle and say this to white guys, that was a real challenge for me, because I hadn't never done it. And when I got my first game, and it's simple. Rules of the game are simple again. If I play well, I may stay 24 more hours. If I don't, I get cut. But there wasn't no blacks in the league no way, so what chance I have anyway, right? So my first game...
Playing with house money.
Yeah. My first game, and you calling your own plays, which is tough. And I want to say this. Mm-hmm. The one thing I knew when I got to Buffalo, the reason blacks wasn't playing quarterback was they say we wasn't smart enough.
Wow.
Okay? We couldn't lead. And they questioned our character. Now, I knew when a black and a quarterback in the league nowhere. I knew I didn't have much of a chance to make it, right? And, I prayed to the Lord,
That's right.
But the one thing I could help others, they was not going to cut me because I wasn't smart enough.
Oh.
I can control that. If I had to stay up day and night, which I had to, and I came in with O.J. Simpson. He was on my team, and they would go out. I didn't go out. I stayed in because I was committed. They were not going to cut me because I wasn't smart enough. But the first game I played in, that statement you're talking about, I went in the game, I called a play, they sacked me. When they sacked me, I was on the ground. The line was running off the field. I got up, and when I went over to the side, and the coach liked me because he liked my ability. I was big and I could throw. He liked me. And he came up to me and put his arms around. That's one thing I'm thankful too. When I went through this, no coach ever raised his voice at me. No coach ever screamed because they knew it'd be racism. So they always talk calm to me. And I couldn't really accept that anyway. But I called a play, and I got to the side, and he put his arm around me, and they say they didn't understand your diction was the reason they missed their block. Well, diction wasn't a word we used in my neighborhood. So, when he left, I said to myself, I'm not going to get cut because of this word diction, right?
Yeah.
So I call every play on one. I say you shouldn't have no problem understanding on one.
That's good. I went back and I was looking at some of your highlights, and when I saw your footwork, your mechanics, I said, well, you could play right now. The skills you had then, you would be lighting up the league. Is it sometimes that you wish, and I probably know the answer to this, but that you could play in an era where you made more money or got more attention or were able to put up the lucrative stats like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Justin Herbert? Because when I saw how you threw the ball, you were throwing the ball like Johnny Unitas. You were throwing the ball like a warm. You had the statuesque mechanics of an amazing drop back passer that I feel like you haven't gotten the type of attention that should have come your way. So is there a part of you that wishes, man, if they only had seen me, if I played right now, I'd be putting up 5,000 yards a season?
I would love to play now. Every time I see a quarterback sign a contract, I would love to play today, But somebody had to play then.
Yes.
Somebody had to sacrifice.
Yes.
Remember, nobody played before me.
Yeah.
So, you have to go through, somebody had to go through the hate mail. Somebody had to go through them saying they didn't understand my diction. Yeah. Somebody had to go through the booing. Oh my God. Somebody had to do that. And I'm fortunate that I was able to play for 3 teams, I was captain of the team, MVP of the Pro Bowl, and if nothing else, don't nobody ever say it, but if nothing else, the one thing I know is that I could not have played during that period of time if I wasn't smart enough.
Man, this is good. Talk a little bit about, and you talked about the letters and things of that nature. When you all were going the road, was there ever any level of, fear for your life or your safety with threats or things of that nature, or did you feel like they were more so idle threats? Was there a time where you're like, this is too much, I need a break from this? Did you ever feel like your safety was threatened?
Yes, but I feel I was focused on this, and it takes a lot out of you because, Coach Robinson has said to me, when you go, don't cut yourself. But you have to remember, I couldn't be a part of no story. I couldn't be with the players and something happened. Yeah. So I had to select where I go, who I go out with. A lot of times I didn't go out. It was a full-time, concentration of what you can, what you can control. But on the good side of it, when I travel, I was with O.J. Simpson, who was the most popular player in the league, and we go to a hotel. He had a big following of people to get autographs. But because I was the only black, I had a following of blacks. I'm so thankful for those people who supported me. Everywhere I went, a lot of black people would come out. When I leave the field, they'd be waiting on me afterwards, and they supported me. And I'm very appreciative of that. The one thing I think about always, all the time, there was somebody played quarterback in high school or somewhere else. Didn't get the opportunity. And they always talk to me. And when we shake hands and they go this way and I go, I look back. And I could always look back and say, that could be me. Mm-hmm. So that part, I'm very, very appreciative of. And going through the pioneering of it, it's a challenge. And I used to get death threats, but in hate mail. I didn't really pay them any attention. I used to get a lot of hate mail. And good, I have and have. Had a lot of people giving me support mail. But one was different, and that's when I was here with the Rams. And I came in, we used to stay in the Beverly Hills Hilton Hotel out there. And I came in, and when I came in, some Secret Service guys came up to me. And when they came up to me, they just said, are you James Harris? I said, yeah. They said, well, look, we want to just let you know you have some death threats. And I said, what? And as I checked in, they followed me to my room, and they stayed out there. And that one was, I felt a little more concerned about that one. When I went to the field that day, I was looking into the stands. Ron Jaworski was my roommate. Sometime we ride together. That next morning, Jaworski told me, well, maybe we should ride separate today. Somebody got to be ready to play.
Jaws is one of the greatest analysts ever.
Right.
When you look at, just a couple more questions here. When you see the players today, who reminds you, playing-wise, of you? Is there anybody that reminds you of your style?
Well, not really, but because I've often been asked that. But I would, in describing my style, I was more a pocket passer guy because I customized my game. Because then, if they saw you running, they would switch you to another position. So I didn't run because Ron didn't want me to run. So I kept from doing that. But I know because most of the quarterbacks today, they're more mobile. The game has changed. It's not a drop-back game anymore.
Yeah. So basically, Tom Brady took your style. That's what you saying.
But I had some mobile. I just customized.
You customized. I like that. Last two questions. Are you all enjoying this? Yeah. Hope you all enjoying this.
Yeah. I can take questions.
It's always good. You can take questions too? If they want to take questions. So we'll take a couple questions if anybody has a question. I have 2 more questions. First question is, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as a good person. That people who I've been around, they can just appreciate me as a person, and that I've made the difference in the life of some people.
That's good. Yeah. And my last question for you is, how do you define purpose?
I define purpose as having a goal and being prepared to achieve that goal.
Wow, this is good. Give it up for James Shack Harris. Y'all, to be able to sit in this seat to ask these questions, it fills me up because this is legacy. Yeah. This is not just Black history. This is American history. Mm-hmm. The biggest game that we see in America right now is NFL. Yeah. And this man should be honored. Amen. This man should be honored more than any other player living or dead. I don't care if they've been in the Hall of Fame or not. The trials that this man had to go through to accomplish what he did as an icon, we appreciate you. We love you for being that. Do we have any questions from our audience? We have 2 young people here today. What's up, Blake? How's it going? Here at church today? This is my son's best friend.
All right.
So if you were to ask Mr. James Shack Harris a question, what would your question be? Either Blake or Jonah? On the spot.
Well, let me say something to them.
Okay.
If I could give them some advice, I would say that there are 5 principles of life that if you follow, you can assure yourself of success, like most of the people in this room have followed. 1, obey your parents or a mentor. Obey your parents or mentor. Remember, they love you. They're going to give you the best advice that you can give. Obey your parents. Obey your mentor. Trust in the Lord. Number 2, trust in the Lord, for he will not forsake you. Trust in the Lord, okay? Number 3, get yourself an education or be self-sustaining. Because there's nothing more important in this world than paying your bills. If you can't pay your bills, nothing's going to work. You know, your marriage not going to work, family not going to work, you not going to work. All right? So you got to pay your bills. All right? 4, work ethic.
That's good.
In order to be successful, you have to pay the price before. You can't wait until the time. The price has to be paid now. Whatever you want to be in life, you got to start paying that price now and preparing for it. And number 5, peer pressure. You got to be careful who you travel around with. So many times you're innocent and you with the wrong people. And I'm going to give you one thing. Those 5 things, if you do those 5 things, you'll be successful in life. And one lesson I learned in the 3rd grade with Albert Orange.
Uh-oh. Oh, Albert.
I got to a school, and I transferred over. And the school I was at, we were about a week ahead of them. So what they were teaching, I already knew it, you know. And when the teacher, he didn't really understand. But when they had recess, the teacher asked him a question, he'd go to the board with that chalk. And he didn't know the answer. and you look at that board and the chalk wouldn't move. And then if you laugh at him, you look around, he's going to get you in recess.
Oh my.
So we go out to recess. I'm a new student. My sister told me that if something happened, pick up me a stick or do whatever. So we go out to recess. He's out there telling people what to do. You play on this team, you play on this team. And it hit me, How can I allow the dumbest guy in the class to tell me what to do? You got to be careful with your peer pressure. It's like drinking and marijuana. When you're an athlete, you don't drink. But another reason I didn't drink or smoke was that when you go down on Friday night to the field, most of the time the guys who were leading those groups were the guys sitting in the back of the classroom drawing the teacher. And they were allergic to class, But they'd be out there leading the group. I never was a fan of somebody dumb, unsuccessful, leading me. And I say to you, be careful with the people that you become your friends and who you hang out, and you become the leader. Woo.
James Sack. Oh, we have questions.
Okay.
You spoke about your family, so I obviously see where you got your foundation from. But I'm curious about your athletic ability. Was that natural for you? Did you spend time playing with your father? Just kind of, where did the mechanics of that come from?
He came from the Sandlocks of Brown Sedition. In my neighborhood, we had 20 players that lived within 6 blocks of me that played professional sports, which meant that I had to compete with these guys every day growing up. And we went on to be state champions and won in college. So that helped my athletic, career. And I'm very thankful to those guys. And for some of those guys, I represent them. They didn't get big enough. They were great players, but they didn't get big enough like I did. So I represent those guys when I go out.
Yeah, that's good.
So coming from this small town rural area, there is a language, right? How did you work on evolving your communication skills over time coming from a small town such as Monroe, Louisiana?
I go back all the time, and my neighborhood, I communicate with them. I never mastered the English language, but I communicate, and basically with the people in my neighborhood. But I guess mostly from being in conversation around people. Being an executive in the league, some of the meetings I have to attend and be with. I'm thankful for that, that part of it. And my education at Grambling. Grambling was very, very dear to me. 4 of my best years of life was at Grambling, where we knew everybody, we did everything there together, and I'm awful appreciative of that.
Did the NFL acknowledge you as being the first successful quarterback?
Marlon Briscoe was the first to play. I'm considered the first starting black quarterback, the first one to win the job, the first one to sustain it. It's a lot of, with Marlon, and he was my roommate in Buffalo. He was a big help to me because, very few people understood what we were going through, and he did. Yeah, the NFL has been a big supporter.
Can you share a little bit about the work you do now with HBCU?
Yeah. Doug Williams and myself started the Black College Football Hall of Fame, and now we have, in Canton, Ohio, we are the Black College Football Hall of Fame, and then now we are doing a Legacy Bowl in New Orleans, where we have a game, because last year only one black got drafted from HBCU school. We felt that there was more should be getting drafted. And one way to do that was to have an all-star game. So we started an all-star game. But along with that, we wanted to be able to reach out and give students an opportunity. So we started a career fair where we have over 1,500 students and we have over 100 vendors, and many of them was able to get a job right on the spot. So we're very appreciative of that. We send buses out to all the HBCU schools in the area. We put them up for a night, and then they get a chance to be interviewed by these vendors. We also have a game in Canton, Ohio, the HBCU Classic, where we get these schools an opportunity to go up in Ohio, where there are not many black colleges, and hopefully it'll increase some enrollment and some interest in going to those schools. Thank you.
Do you feel like your relationship with the Lord helped you to be a leader? And if so, how did that happen?
I think my relationship with the Lord and my family helped me to be a better person. And by being a better person and the people he put in my life, you know, enabled me to be a leader. And then when you play quarterback, it's a job that requires you to lead. And if I didn't have that capabilities, then there was no way that I could be successful in my dream. Because so many times when I dream, it turned into a nightmare. But I'm just so glad that, and I'll share this with you. When I went to Grambling with a prayer and a promise. You know, the promise was that I'd get a college degree for my mother, because my father had asked me that. And I can control that. I was going to get a college degree. I didn't care what happened, right? And the prayer was to get an opportunity to play quarterback in the National Football League. And that prayer wasn't answered right away. But eventually, and I look back on it, I am very thankful that I was able to satisfy that promise in prayer.
Amen. Any other questions? Give it up for James Shack Harris.
And I want to thank Ashley and Mother for being here. Thank you for inviting me, Ashley.
Thank you once again.